All right, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something that sounds almost too good to be true. A medical case where a patient's long-term hearing loss and that awful ringing tinnitus just disappeared, and it happened after treatment with dry needling. So the big question is, how on earth is that possible? Let's break down the science, and we're going straight to the source for this one.
So check this out. This is the case that kicked off this whole investigation. We're talking about a middle-aged guy who had been dealing with serious hearing loss and tinnitus for years. Then, after just 3 days of treatment, his condition completely reversed. And this wasn't just him feeling better, no way. Audiology tests actually confirmed it. He went from medically deficient hearing back to normal in 3 days.
So how does that even happen? You know, the source material jokes around saying, oh, it must be aliens or magic. But the real answer is actually a super compelling explanation rooted in our own neurophysiology. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today. Forget magic, this is all about the body's own master regulator.
Okay, so the prime suspect in this whole medical mystery? It's something called the autonomic nervous system, or ANS for short. Just think of it like this. It's the part of your nervous system that's running the show behind the scenes. It controls everything you don't have to consciously think about. You know, your heart rate, your digestion, your blood pressure. It's basically the body's background operating system, just humming along. Now, this ANS has two main branches, and they're kind of like frenemies. They work in opposition to each other. On one side, you've got the sympathetic system. That's your classic fight or flight response. It jacks everything up, gets you ready for stress and action. Then, on the other side, you have the parasympathetic system. This is your rest and digest mode. Its whole job is to calm everything down. And in a healthy body, these two are supposed to be in a perfect, beautiful balance.
And this right here, this brings us to the villain of our story. According to the source material, for a lot of people with these kinds of chronic conditions, the big problem is that their fight or flight system, that sympathetic side, gets stuck in the on position. It's just permanently ramped up. And this state has a name. It's called chronic sympathetic hyperactivity. So, what's the motive for this villain? What does it actually do? Well, when one side of your nervous system is stuck in overdrive like that, it just creates this whole cascade of problems. Your body pretty much loses its ability to regulate itself, and it gets trapped in this nasty, destructive feedback loop. And the consequences? Well, they're not pretty. When that sympathetic system is constantly revving its engine, it can lead to higher blood pressure, inflammation all over your body, increased anxiety, and even something called tissue hypoxia, which is basically a lack of oxygen getting to your tissues. And the source argues that any one of these things, or all of them together, can directly cause or seriously worsen conditions like tinnitus and hearing loss.
Okay, so if the system is stuck, how in the world do you fix it? Well, the therapeutic approach here isn't about just, treating the ear by itself. It's way bigger than that. It's about forcing a full system-wide reset.
I absolutely love this analogy from the source material. The treatment is like rebooting your computer and running antivirus software. The whole goal is to calm that overactive sympathetic system down, just enough so that the body's own built-in healing abilities, the antivirus software if you will, can finally take over and restore that balance.
So the treatment itself has 3 really clear goals. Step 1, depress that overactive fight or flight system. Knock it down a peg. Step 2, at the same time, you actively elevate the rest and digest system. You want to boost that calming side, and when you do both of those things together, you can achieve the ultimate goal. Step 3, autonomic homeostasis. That's just a fancy way of saying a perfect state of balance.
All right, now let's get into the specifics. The nitty-gritty. How does a practitioner actually use needles to reboot the whole system? Well, it's all about targeting some very, very specific spots in the body, places that have an incredibly powerful influence over the nervous system.
Okay, key target number 1 is this tiny little muscle most of us have probably never even heard of. It's called the tensor veli palatini, or TVP for short. So what makes this little muscle so special? Get this. It is the only muscle in the entire body that attaches directly to the cartilage of the auditory tube. You know, the tube in your ear.
And that direct connection, that's exactly why the TVP is so crucial. If that muscle gets tight, it can physically cause tinnitus. But here's the catch. It's buried so deep inside the jaw that it's almost impossible to treat without using needles. And as a bonus, the path a needle has to take to get to the TVP also ends up treating about a dozen other jaw muscles along the way. And those are often huge contributors to the problem too. All right, the second major player here isn't a muscle at all. It's a nerve. Specifically, it's a branch of the vagus nerve that you can actually access right there in the ear. And this nerve, it's like a direct phone line to the rest and digest part of our brain.
So, the vagus nerve is a really big deal. It's the most powerful rest and digest or parasympathetic nerve in the whole body. And what's wild is that about 80% of its fibers are sending information back to the brain, reporting on what's going on with your organs. So, by stimulating this nerve right in the ear, you're essentially sending a direct message to the brain that says, hey, it's time to calm down. In fact, vagus nerve stimulation is already an FDA-approved treatment for things like epilepsy and depression, so we know it works.
But this whole approach is holistic. It's not just about the jaw and the ear. Practitioners also go after muscles in the upper neck, the deep core muscles, and even the pelvic floor. And you might be thinking, why go so far away from the ear? Well, it's because tension anywhere in the body contributes to that overall fight or flight stress. To really truly reboot the system, you have to bring that stress level down across the board, globally.
And all of this leads us to the source's much broader perspective on health in general. And it really challenges some of the conventional ways we think about treating chronic conditions. The source offers this really strong critique, saying, quote, if your doctor cannot provide you information other than what you find on Google, run. The idea here is that a lot of standard medical advice for conditions like tinnitus often just doesn't address this underlying problem, the dysregulation of the nervous system. And we're just presenting this to show you the source's perspective on why they believe this kind of alternative approach is so necessary. So when you boil it all down, the ultimate philosophy behind this entire treatment is pretty simple. The body actually knows how to heal itself. The therapist's job isn't to fix the problem directly, it's to get rid of the roadblocks, that chronic fight or flight stress, and just create the right neurophysiologic environment for the body to do its own repair work. And that leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought, right? If it's actually possible to reboot the body's entire operating system, to fix something as complex as hearing loss, what other chronic conditions out there might not be isolated problems at all, but just symptoms of a system that's crying out for a reset?